What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Lovy. I got a license view of the clouds up here, and so I wanted to talk about my dream that I had last night, and I guess first it was the thing that happened was not necessarily just about the dream. So yesterday, I posted to my community section. I made a post where I saw a cloud formation, and I was like, "It's given." And I posted a picture of the cloud, and then I posted a picture of the eye of Amon Ra. Well, because I noticed that, I'm like, that's really looking like the eye of Amon Ra, the eye of Horus. Um, and so I posted that. Well, then when I slept last night, I had a dream where, at one point in the dream, I'm looking up at a cloud formation, and what I see is I see the cloud, but I see almost like someone has drawn a pattern, and so the pattern was actually, I don't know if you can see this, but on my vape, like these squiggly lines. Now, it wasn't like squares with squiggly lines in it. It was more like squiggly lines in diamond shapes almost, that created like, how would you describe it? Like a crosshatch kind of diamond pattern, but they were kind of like curved and whatnot. But I'm seeing this pattern like almost drawn into the clouds, right? And it's like I can see the clouds and I can see it there. It's almost like, wow, that's so interesting. It's like the cloud is fake, and it made me want to. It made me think like, oh, there is a GIF or like a JPEG or something up there in the clouds as I'm looking at it, and then I kind of see that the pattern that I'm seeing is actually a part of a larger picture, and that picture is like a drawing of the devil, and then like like a depiction of like the devil card in the tarot. And then I zoom out even larger, and it's like the devil is within, is like inside of a cloud formation that is a lion. And so at that point, like in my dream, and the setting of this is that I'm like out by a beach somewhere. It's like I'm out on the beach, or near the water, near the beach, and it's like looking up at the sky. And then so like there was like some people with me who I couldn't necessarily identify. They seemed uh like perhaps two, a Caucasian man and a Caucasian woman, like younger people. Um but that part is vague, so I don't really quite remember that. But I do remember that, you know, after seeing this, I'm pointing it out to them, and then feeling like, and that's very interesting, because the last time I was like on the beach, I spent a lot of time with like I guess he would be considered Latino or Hispanic, but like a white Latino or Hispanic man from Colombia, and a white girl from the Midwest when I was out on the beach in Mexico. And so maybe that's like the reference that I had, but his name was Jesus. And so I'm seeing this, and so I'm pointing it out to them, and I see the three phases of expansion, to like the pattern, to seeing the devil, then to seeing the lion. And then um after I pointed this out to them, it was like, okay, we're all looking up at this formation. And then it was like the sun, it was like this sense of like either an eclipse, or like the sun is going out. Like the sun, it seemed to go from being like daytime to like getting darker very quickly. But whatever it was alarming to us. It was like we saw this sign, and then we're seeing like this bigger sign of like the sun getting darker. And so we're like quickly like, okay, let's get out of here. And it was like at that moment that we kind of realized that like no one else was around. Like everyone else had, deserted wherever this island place that we were was, this beachside place. So everyone is like, getting out of Dodge, and we're getting out of Dodge too. And so the next place that I see myself is kind of inside a building, but going upstairs. And when we reached a certain point in the stairs, it was like as far as we could go. I could see that across the room where the stairs continued, but you could not like step across there. There was like the steps went up to where we were, then there was almost like if you were playing a video game and like Mario, and you had to jump from one spot to the next and then over to the stairs, like something like that. It's like a big kind of hurdle to cross to get to the additional stairs and to continue up. But we were there like at this one place, kind of stopped. And at that point, it appeared to like we were actually playing a video game, because the way that I'm interpreting it in the dream is like, oh, we've reached this level in the game, and we can skip a level if we want to. We actually get to skip a level, and we can start using weapons. So it was like a shoot 'em up video game. And I'm not like huge on weapons or anything like that, but it was like I could see like that we could choose our weapon. There were like these like, high kind of artillery rifles, kind of futuristic looking weapons, but we could just choose any one of them. And it was like the people around me were like, yeah, like ready to grab the weapons to choose them, so that we can skip this level. And it was almost like skipping the level would be like jumping across and getting over there to the other side of the staircase to continue our elevation, if you would. So that dream was very, the dream language, I recognize like all the symbolism kind of in it. But then also recognizing it's very closely tied to what I am, kind of experiencing in the day to day. Because right, when you're it's as above so below. We're living a physical existence, this is the physical part of a spiritual existence, and then your dreams, they can often tap into that spiritual part of the existence. And so I'm recognizing the connection and like seeing the pattern where I posted recently. And so it's very interesting because it feels very symbolic of revelations and the tribulation. So I think we are, there's something happening right now. And time is a very interesting thing. So like, we don't necessarily all experience things at the exact same time, right? And particularly with that concept of skipping a level, we don't all journey through things in the same way, and taking the same path. But there is this, when I did a reading yesterday, I was channeling this energy of you have to go through some hardships before you can receive your blessing. So there may be like certain hurdles, if you will, that you have to get across before you can get to the other side and to continue on your elevation to something much greater, right? So for example, for me over the past 7 years, it perhaps has been like a bit challenging for me because at the beginning of the 7 years, I was compelled to kind of leave my job, my good paying job, working in advertising where I got a lot of free swag and got to eat at a lot of, the fancy restaurants like Nobu for free, and coming back to reconnect with my family, who none of them were in New York. I'm coming back, bouncing around the South, visiting family that I hadn't seen since I was like, really spent time with since I was like 15, who now have like children, my nephews, things like that. But even in that process, it becomes very difficult because now you are reconnecting and dealing with like, things like old childhood dynamics and, family drama when relatives die and things like that. And all the other stuff that we go through, at any given time. But for sure, the purpose was to, I had to come and have that experience, of coming back to reconnect with family. And then there were other experiences that happened, within that, during that process, of course, that were, difficult as well. But it felt like it was very, very necessary for me to have that step in my journey before I could continue on to this next step, which is, as it stands now, has brought me to a place of wanting to, be in this spirituality, this, pretty much preaching, and having a spiritual calling. So I didn't really experience what, I experienced what most people would probably call accessing the Akashic. So, and it wasn't like something that I was trying to do. It was something that I feel like, because of the way that I was living, I was granted this access to the Akashic, and it's probably more so about what other people were doing that granted me, and the combination of what others were doing and how I was living that granted me access to the Akashic. But at the same time that happened, I was visited by benevolent angelic beings. So it was like I'm accessing the Akashic, which took me to another place. I'm feeling like it maybe was even like showing me a certain type of thing that was going on, and potentially like unlocking really my prophetic, in a sense, and then seeing like the three angelic beings coming down on me. And I would say that I saw, when I say saw, I saw the garments, and I could see the forms coming down upon me. I could see all the backdrop and that, of where I was, but I could not see the faces. The faces were light, like bright light. And because they were, the first thing I saw were two golden lambs, which contemporaneous to the time I described them as llamas, because they were kind of giant lambs, which were perhaps like cherubim. But seeing them first made me think, the Spirit of Christ came to me. And of course the garments were very like Old Testament, but it was unlike any. And I'm a dreamer. I've been dreaming since a child. This was the most intense of accessing like the Akashic, kind of seeing that, which is for me, it was like a sucking up kind of process, within the dream state. In the dream state, taken up into this place where I'm seeing the Akashic, which is kind of happening in in a whirlwind, right? But since then, my prophetic, you know, has become a lot stronger, and that's because as I began um, to study and learn about it, following people like Prophet Lovy, I saw, and like I said, when I went out to the beach, when I was last out there at the beach, I was doing a lot of fasting and praying, which I believe allowed me to expand my prophetic abilities, uh, and I'll just give an example, like someone that I met recently, you know, and you can probably look back to where I made a post about this, where I was making a post about a channeled message, and the channeled message was about um, seeing someone kind of at a funeral, and um, this person's kind of telling me about their kids, and how the baby mama wasn't really helping with the kids very much. Um, but I was seeing like someone that I knew whose name was Terry, so I was like, the name Terry may be significant. And um, after that, I meet someone whose name is Terrence, so I think that was significant. And Terrence was telling me about, you know, his struggles to gain custody of his kids who he raised, and then he has this child who is struggling with drug addiction. Fentanyl is out here, so the child is like, ODing all the time. They're calling the EMS. He had to go to the hospital, and sure enough, there was a day that I got like a 555 synchronicity, and it coincided, and I kind of was like, I hope nothing's going on with your kid. And a couple hours later, I found out that the kid is in the hospital from like an overdose. So I've been trying to really, like, if there's a reason that I'm receiving this message for him, like, the reason must be like, to encourage him to try to do everything he can to save this child's life. I say kid, they're like 20. And so, like, I'm seeing that my my spiritual gifts are enhancing like that. So I'm seeing and this person Terrence right now is he's probably somewhere in Nazareth or Jerusalem right now, doing like a visit to Israel. um but I just say that, like, I'm seeing, in the expansion of my spiritual gifts, I've, gone from seeing like things that I think are very personal to me to being able to help other people, to heal other people. And I've always felt like I've had prophetic visions, prophetic dreams, and had like healing abilities. But certainly, like, my experience of fasting and praying, with the 30-day fast back in July, for sure led to, because this has been, even though that happened, it's almost like I'm not as blown away by it, because I like understood that would happen. And even before I started the fast, I was already receiving intuitive hits about like about kind of going away on the trip, and like and doing the fast. And so there was things that Prophet Lovy were saying that were like connecting very strongly with the dreams that I had been having. And yeah, so even with that experience of the spirit coming to me, it felt very closely tied to, it was like I was touched, received the message that was for me, and then kind of saw a vision of like, beings floating back up. Now that could have been that could have been kind of like a revelation type of dream, like seeing the the rapture, if you will, of like people floating up. But I don't know necessarily. It could have been seeing like the beings that came down onto me return, but they didn't look the same as they were returning, and I was removed. Like they touched me, and then it was like I could see myself going into like a courtyard type of, like perhaps even like an ancient type of courtyard, um, and and then there's other things that's happened too. So when was visited by a spirit, like a spiritual being again later, um, the message, and even in that time, the message was, I could receive the message about Barack Obama. Was visited by the spiritual being again shortly after I left Mexico. Received another message about Obama. Now that's a 3-year time difference, but with the second message, very clear that I received this message. It was like it was spoken to me. And so I made a post about it, and sure enough, like Obama's name is back up. There's been a lot of things that have kind of been, negative things that have kind of been said about him. And like the message I received was like, like they're trying to hurt Barack Obama. And certainly there are. Tucker Carlson just did the video with the crack smoker saying that he smoked crack with Barack Obama. I guess this is who they think is credible. His chef turned up dead while paddleboarding out by his house. And you never know what else is kind of planned or what any of that means. But I did receive that message, and I had another dream where I saw Michelle Obama, and Michelle Obama comes up too in these dreams. But seeing Michelle Obama with like some kind of aide who seemed like a Jewish female, and it was almost like it was something about taking a picture. And I don't know if that's like a sign that like they have like perhaps some someone who they can't trust on the team. If Michelle has someone on the team that's not really kind of for them, I don't know. I don't know necessarily what that means, but certainly that's a part of it. And then I see people like Marcus Rogers, who is clearly like a Trump supporter, aligning Trump with Jesus, and then like putting like these rainbow snakes around Barack Obama. But it's very interesting because I feel like even I'm gay, and God still came to that, the angelic being still came to me. So that it's a very easy and cheap and I don't know, it's just like it's very easy to be like, to do this kind of preaching that's just like, oh, that anything gay is like the devil. Now sure enough, like I'm sure there's plenty of gay people who are affected by demonic spirits, right? But this trying to make Trump, saying Trump is persecuted, aligning him with Jesus, and saying Obama is like all these snakes around him, because he's gay. It's something about this is just very cheap. It's really disappointed me with Marcus Rogers, like a little bit. But I think a lot of that with Marcus Rogers is rooted in his own personal experiences that shape his anti-blackness. So I can see him hopping on the Trump train, particularly when like this is one crackhead trying to say this stuff about Obama when Trump has how many crimes that he has been convicted of, how many allegations of like rape, how many hot mics have him saying things that no one would necessarily consider Christ like, I don't know. So I'm not going to say that I know the answer to these things, but it seems like a very cheap argument, and a very, like, it I don't know how to describe it, but I do know that, like, people are entitled to their own beliefs. So, he may be tapped into something. He has a big following. I don't have anyone following me, and so maybe he has to say what his followers, will appreciate. And, sometimes people get into an echo chamber where, to keep your subscribers, you have to continue to say stuff that appeals to them. But I think it's unfortunate that that there's this narrative that, like, because so many Christians are very anti-gay, that, like, God and Jesus can't be for gay people. Because I think it's ultimately about, gay is just like a label that people use. In reality, it's a lot of straight people that have done gay things, and there's a lot of gay people who don't do gay things. They don't have sex, they just be attracted to men. But I think that people make gay people feel like that, God can't be for them, because it's like the church, I know I'll go to a church and they won't really even have any men. It'll be just a bunch of old ladies in there, and then they'll be talking about homosexuality. It's like that's the only thing that they can think to kind of talk about, when it doesn't seem like that's something that necessarily affects, these old ladies all that much. You know what I mean? But that's what those old ladies are paying their tithes to go here. And y'all, church people can be something else, honey. Something else, little old ladies. I'm telling you, they can be something else. Anyway, but this sun has come out now, and it's getting a little hot. Well, I'm sitting out here in the parking lot. But anyway, so I think that message that I saw is perhaps about, the coming revelation. It is about the time, and I'm seeing, it definitely had this element of things multiplying quickly. Like, you see the signs, and then this, like, right now, certainly people will be like, oh, we see the signs of the end of times right now, but then the end of time signs are going to expand very quickly, and you will see the signs, and then you will see very signs of evil, the presence of evil happening very quickly. And then you'll see much more of the, like, everyone is recognizing that this is indeed the end of times revelations that we have been thinking about. And I hope that that I've been able to communicate that in the spirit of truth. And it's just so interesting that it just came to me, because Prophet Lovy was just saying something, just posted something. It was like, truth is not something that you can seek. Truth is only something that can be revealed. And so I hope that I am revealing a bit of the truth to you. All right, it's your boy Lil Brad.